So that's how it is.
If the reality, the self, has nothing to do with the above mentioned agency or their fruits, our life, which is nothing without them, must have no relationship at all with the self. And yet, where the self is not, their existence and activities are not possible. Therefore, there must be some relationship between the self and the not self. And here, this is strange contactless contact is being explained.
So now we have hashed it out enough now. Now we know that what is the contact like conscious or relation-less relationship. It's the same.
It is very well known that my nose is a permanent fixture on my face. It is neither a voluntary nor an involuntary movement. And yet, the other day when I was looking into a basin of water, I saw my nose and ears moving rhythmically sideways as though upon well-oiled hinges. Even when I saw it, I knew that my nose was not moving. But all the same, I saw what I saw. Because my reflection in the water depended entirely upon the reflecting surface, it gathered unto itself its abnormalities from the vagaries of the reflecting medium. The self or the Atma has neither activities nor an agency, and yet, when in this life I function through the equipments that are natural to me, the conditioned self, the ego gathers onto itself these peculiarities of agency, actions, and anxieties for their fruits.
So he just one more time explaining that it just takes up, the quality bolo ya kuch bhi bolo. And I think the best example for this I can think of is that somebody gave, that was a very good example. Suppose there's a fire is there, okay, and then you put एक आयरन का बॉल रख दो उसके बगल में, राइट, फायर के बगल में, क्या होगा उससे? गरम, उसमें डाल दो, समझो गरम होने लगेगा एकदम. एंड it is not the nature of iron, right? Heat is not the nature of iron, but it takes up that. But then when the fire is stopped, then वो ठंडा हो जाएगा. So the heat was actually not its nature, it's just taken it from there. So the same way here, it's not the perfect example, but made, like, to me it connected in my mind. So basically it is like consciousness is there, in its presence everything gets alive, but the two gets mixed up. We think it is getting mixed up actually, and it's taking, how do I say it, whatever happening in the nature as though superimposed on it, and feels like it's happening in there. That's all. Just like that heat got superimposed on that iron temporarily. Same way. I don't know if that's making any sense. Go ahead.
Here it says the conditioned self. Conditioned self, is it the self that is conditioned by egos and desires?
Yes. So when it's a conditioned self, you can call it jiva, you can call it ego. Both are okay. Because ego is nothing but when I forget who I am and I think I am this body, mind, intellect. Wo ego ho gaya. And so it is, and jiva is the same way. That's exactly what they're talking about.
Electricity in itself is a static energy. But when it is generated, stored, and sent out through the distribution system, and when it reaches the terminals in my room, and when I plug onto it the various equipments, the same energy becomes dynamic. When the self, pregnant with all potentialities, functions through the matter conditionings, it assumes to itself the egocentric attitudes of agency, action, fruits, and so on.
See, this is the best example.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, and then it says agency means doership, action, and fruit. All of that chakkar chalu ho jata hai bas.
I think that example of looking in the water
was very
is
good.
so powerful,
Yes.
The enjoyer of the fruits and the performer of actions in us are the ego and not the Atma. I do not shake or shiver, but my reflection can be shaken when the reflecting medium is disturbed. The Atma becomes the performer and so on, only when it gets conditioned by Sabhav, nature or Maya, the divine Maya made up of the three gunas, as the Lord himself calls it.
So ये उन्होंने let's see which one. Yeah, no, अभी आएगा ये आगे कि when it, you can call it nature, you can call it Maya, you can call it Swabhava. All that is same thing they are pointing out to, and he's going to explain that how it's made up of three gunas. Prakriti is made of, nature is made of three gunas, and that's how you get the different varieties. Different proportions of which creates different variety. That's how they explain it in Vedanta.
In reality, however, the Lord in his absolute nature is ever uninvolved.
So I think Swami ji ने काफी example देके काफी different ढंग से हमको समझा दिया कि भाई it is how it is. It's a little bit contemplative subject, and the more we think about it, the more clear it will get more clarity. But anybody has any question, comment, or want to add anything?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Yeah, sure.
So I actually thought about it for a long time because I was understanding this principle of Brahma and universe and our place in it and Vedanta. But then I said, why is the Shiv coming here and why is Krishna coming here and what is other people coming here? So ultimately, it is the whole universe minus us. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but the universe is full, complete, which includes everybody. However, we as our entity have certain assets. So our universe is that whole universe minus us. So if Shiv comes to me and Hanuman comes to you, that is a still part of the universe which is coming to you. So if you go in totality, this is all Brahma. But these are the pieces of the universe which guide you.
Yeah, you can look at it that way. There's no problem in that because it's like universe can manifest so many different ways, right? So this is a manifestation, what you're talking about.
If I look at two bodies like we are talking about, one body you are observing with the other one. This other one is the rest of the universe, which is observing this body. And so when I'm in this body, I really believe that Krishna comes and shows me, how the love is.
Yeah, definitely it can manifest.
So that's the way it came out, because we are all born incomplete, and the completeness is the rest of the universe. And that is one of the Shiv Sutra. We are all born incomplete. So it doesn't matter whether you are Ramakrishna or whether you are ordinary human being. Still, they merged with that, but then they came back, they were still incomplete. But they were going back and forth. Anyway, that was my comment. Because I used to wonder why we call it God. So I mean, we had long discussion here. What is the definition of God? And God actually is Brahma.
Well, God, like if you say that when you talk about the word God, someone told me that it's like, I think in Chinmay Mission only we learn GOD, generator, operator, destroyer, right? That's how they got the GOD, God,
Yeah,
Trinity, okay? But at a very highest level, the Trinity is also manifestation of that higher self.
Right.
That's why you were only saying, no, that there are so many different Brahmas and Maheshes, but when you talk about Shiv also, you have to see in what context you're talking about. One context, when they talk about Shiva, they talk about that pure Brahman, right?
Yeah.
And even in Krishna, when they say Krishna consciousness, then you're talking about that highest consciousness. But when you're talking about Krishna, who actually came on this earth, he took a body too. But his body, it can be called a divine body, but as a body का जो धर्म था, वो उनको भी निभाना पड़ा, because in the end, he had to drop the body.
Even Ram, when he wanted to cross the river and they were having trouble building the bridge, he wanted to destroy the ocean. And then I think the Samudra came to him and he said, you cannot change the nature.
But
So
I will
that-
help you. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many different ways you can explain. But so what you're saying is absolutely true, that there is a highest level and that is complete. And that's why we have that very famous verse, Purnamada Purnamidam. Purna
Right.
Purna Mujat.
And every one of us is that. So
Yeah.
because we are part of that universe.
Right, right.
But in Japji Sahib also, I think Nanak talks about behind Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, that is where the universe is. So Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh is just in between us and the universe.
They call it the God principle. In Vedanta, they call it like Ishvara. That
Right.
he is a karma phaladata. Okay, Ishwar is a karma phaladata, but not the
There
pure.
is the Ek Omkar Satnam, that is the one.
Yeah.
eventually.
And even Buddhism, it was interesting that lately then I was listening and then that made it clear because, in Buddhism, they call it emptiness,
Right.
right? They don't call it like, so then somebody explained that what they call emptiness, we
Right.
call it Purna. I think it was Sarvapriyananji. He explained so well. He's saying it's the same concept.
Right.
But they just call it emptiness. हम लोग के वेदांत में पूर्ण बोलते हैं उसको.
Right.
So true. Anybody else has anything to share, talk about?
Umaji, we talk about delusion or something, that way we came. Joe is talking as incompleteness. Is that the same thing then?
I think it's
Because
the
we
same
talk
thing.
about that,
In my mind,
because-
it is the same thing. When you say incomplete, in reality, nobody is incomplete. True, because they say no,
Right,
you are that
that's right.
self. Yes, so it is a delusion that we have that we are incomplete. And then like I think Sarvapriyananji said that one of the Western philosopher who is a spiritual philosopher, he gave I forgot the name. What he said, he always tells this story that he made a children's story that God wanted to play so he created many from his own, but his game is so good that in the game he forgot who he was because God made the game, right? And then
right,
somebody
yeah,
I was
right.
talking to recently about this concept, so he said that if we are like complete and all, why do we need to do this thing? That if we are all the time happy, suppose, nothing bad happens, हम लोग को पता ही नहीं चलेगा कि we are happy. Is that true or not? It's like somebody keeps giving you food every 2 hours. You don't know what it feels like to be hungry. You will only enjoy the food if you are hungry for. Then जब बहुत भूख लगी होती है कितना मजा आता है खाने में. The same way, if God is just sitting in bliss the whole time, it's like he wants to experience the opposite so that he can enjoy his bliss more. I thought that is a very good reason for this world because everybody says, why we came, क्या इतना ये स्यापा लगा रखा है यहाँ पे इतना सारा क्यों? So because if it's too much of the same thing, we need a little other side to see. Then we become more appreciative. The joy is a lot more. I don't know if you guys relate to this. मेरे को तो I got related to it.
I had one more related thing, and I always contemplated on it that why do we feel good when we win? And it could be winning in something which doesn't mean anything.
It's a temporary good, no?
No, but why?
Why?
What
Because
makes us-
okay,
what is the-
okay, I'll tell you the reason. At least that's what we have learned. This is what happens. If bliss is your nature, right?
Right.
The reason you don't feel the bliss because you are agitated about something or the other or there. When your desire gets satisfied, the reason you like because you want to win. No, who wants to lose? Nobody wants to lose. So now you have a desire of winning. That desire got fulfilled. So temporarily the agitation came down. Your true nature came up. That's the science. So what they are telling you that your true nature is bliss, is happiness. And the other way the Sadguru explains, or even Chinmayananji explains, is happiness is not felt anywhere outside. Everybody
That
agrees.
makes sense.
Happiness is always felt within you. Nobody has planted the happiness in you. Something
I
is
play
making
bridge
you
game.
happy. It is.
I play a bridge game. I have no. It doesn't matter I win or lose, but it makes me feel good if I win.
because you are still in that desire satisfying mode. But what they are telling you, that Vedanta is telling you, there is another way, that you don't tie your happiness, but you understand your true nature, then you can be in bliss all the time. Then it won't matter. That's why these saints and sages, किसी ने बोला कि उनका बोले कि तुम्हारा घर भी जल रहा है ना, उनको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. ओके, लेट्स डू द मेडिटेशन हियर. चलता है, जलने दो. फायर ब्रिगेड वाले आके बुझा देंगे. See what I'm saying? Because they don't connect.
I have a video of my kids when they were like 3 or 4 or 5 year old, and in that my son, who's the older, he was singing something, and then he said, I won. And then my daughter, who's 2 year older, younger, like 3 year, she said, I lost. So he said, no, you're not supposed to feel good if you lose. So
Who said so?
So if you're like a child, it shouldn't matter.
In fact, somebody was telling that child has so much divinity in them, because now that I see a little baby in our own house, and they said कि child is such, they'll be crying. And this happens with my grandson, he'll be crying, and if I go there, one time to zarur smile de dega. Rote he will smile, and then he'll go back to his crying. So means that it is there in them, and they are not like conditioned by too many things yet, so they are very pure.
Child is divine, and when it grows up, it becomes farther and farther away from that.
And we are, unfortunately, the adults are responsible because we condition everything, negative. Firstly, we don't know how to, and then we condition it that way. Sad. And then child has his own journey too. The vasanas are going to come out,
Right.
So it will come out as he grows older. Yeah. Any other?
See what Joe was saying about feeling good when he wins in bridge game, and maybe not feeling so happy when he loses. So he started with the desire, whether he realizes or not. He started with the desire to win, and it gave him temporary happiness when he won, and also gave him temporary unhappiness when he lost.
No, actually, I was just playing. I wasn't worrying about winning or losing.
अच्छा सुनो, आपने कहा कि विनिंग में बहुत मजा आता है. I'll tell you one condition when winning में आपको मजा नहीं आएगा. When you are playing with a little child, you purposely lose, and you feel so happy that you lost.
Yeah.
So see, even that principle is not true, and many times this happens too. Like I was watching one. Some kind of ये होता है ना, Olympics game for the people who are like challenged people, they have some, and one time you must have seen that video too, that in that they showed that they were having some race and one fellow fell down, so instead of the others moving ahead and trying to win, they all stood around him, helped him, then they all went together and they all crossed the line together and everybody cheered. They were not there for winning and losing. They were there for cooperation. Because, in their world, cooperation is so important because the person cannot do anything on their own. So they learned, hey, I have to help others. And even whatever capacity I have. And that's why, like we were talking about it, that in the spiritual organization, competitions should not be there. Because cooperation should be there, that hey, how do we cooperate? And that then winning and losing, it doesn't mean anything at all. You're just cooperating with everybody. Everybody should be on the front line. Why only one person?
जी ये जो आखिरी लाइन पढ़ी है मैंने, the Lord in his absolute nature. So I thought nature and Lord were totally separate.
I know, it's because, when it comes to all these terms, you have to see in what context they are saying. Because they are not talking about now, because when you say absolute nature, वो God का भी एक nature बता रहे, just a way of saying it, that's all, because that's the language we understand. He's not talking about वो वाला nature, माया वाला nature here. Yeah. भगवान का स्वभाव बता रहे वो ऐसे, सच्चिदानंद. But good point what you said. Yeah.
They're saying the nature of the soul is to be blissful, and it also controls all the senses. And so there are the 9 openings of our body. And if we remain blissful and we control our senses and we are one with God, then we will be unaffected and we won't be bothered by what is happening around us. When we perform our action.
Yeah, right. His question was more like, hey, it's in God's nature, and we thought nature is separate. I know exactly what you're
not answering his question. I was.
You are just yes. Okay, I see. Yeah, good, Sneha. That is true. Whatever you said. Shall we close Bhagavad Gita? सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि. So we are at verse 5, and just before verse 3 and 4 we saw that how the chariot was described. Body is the chariot, and the horses are the sense organs, the reins are the mind, and there is a jiva sitting as a owner, and the charioteer is a intellect. That's how they are described. And now we go further. Now he's going to describe कि भाई अगर charioteer अविज्ञानवान बोलेंगे उसको, meaning people who are like not all together, and विज्ञानवान, intelligent versus non-intelligent type of. You can say many different words. Basically saying not all together or all together. इसमें क्या होगा? So from that perspective, let's read verse 5. यत्स विज्ञानवान् भवति अयुक्तेन मनसा सदा तस्येन्द्रियाण्यवश्यानि दुष्टाश्वा इव सारथेः. Here is one who. Two is again avigyanavan, devoid of right understanding. Bhavati is ayuktena, with unrestrained. Manasa, the mind. Mind is not in the control, that means. Sada, always. Yasya, tasya is his. Indriyani is the senses. Avashyani, uncontrollable. Dushta ashva, vicious horses. But Tejamanaji explained what it actually means, vicious horses here. Iva is like, Sarathi is the charioteer. Like was in the Sarathi bane Krishna Bhagwan. So, यहाँ पर समझो अगर अविज्ञानवान मीनिंग जिसको नॉलेज नहीं हो, उसको मूर्ख कोई हो, a knowledge of what. So if you go back to the chariot analogy, तो समझो एक ड्राइवर है या क्या बोलते हैं, सारथी बोलते हैं हम, सारथी है वो, उसको न व्हीकल का ज्ञान है और कोई कुछ anything goes wrong with it, he doesn't know how to fix it, or he doesn't have any understanding of the road, वो सब कुछ आ जाता है उसमें. Doesn't have understanding of the road and doesn't know what kind of traffic there will be, कहाँ पर मेरे को slow चलना चाहिए, कहाँ पर fast चलना चाहिए. Simple. अगर हम जब ड्राइवर किसको ही अपॉइंट करते हैं तो हम लोग पहले उसका इंटरव्यू ये सब लेते हैं ना कि भाई उसको ड्राइविंग करनी आती है कि भी नहीं, उसको रोड्स मालूम है कि नहीं. अगर ड्राइविंग भी करनी आती है, रोड नहीं मालूम होगा. अभी तो खैर GPS is become, समझो GPS नहीं हो तो he has to have a knowledge of all these things. And then Tejo Manaji told a very funny story. It happened to him, it looks like. He's saying one time he went and stayed in somebody's house, so they had to go somewhere. So driver ke saath baithe, there was another person sitting with him, and he said the driver was so wonderful, he didn't ask us where we are going. He just started. जहाँ पर green light थी वहीं जाने लगा. He's saying as though it was below his dignity to ask भाई कहाँ जाना है. And sometime in the conversation they forgot to tell him and ये चलता जा रहा है. तो ऐसे भी driver होते हैं, you know, unintelligent, that अविज्ञानवान. So he was just, you know, telling his experience. So he's saying, okay, coming back to our body, that what are they talking about? Firstly, you know, if you see the horse wala, chariot wala example, तो उसमें अगर उसने लगाम ढीली छोड़ दी, समझो, लगाम को पकड़ के रखना पड़ता है ना, reins को, for the horses to go. Suppose if he lets it loose, तो घोड़े तो इधर उधर भागेंगे, you know. So the same way that if we don't manage our mind is at a lower level now. Remember that? Collecting data, emotions and all that. Intellect is a higher one. That's why intellect को बिठाया वहाँ पे. तो intellect has to control the mind. अगर mind ने छोड़ दिया है, intellect ने छोड़ दिया mind को free, छुट्टी, you know. अगर हम लोग समझो, start doing everything that feels just good, we know. We don't need to study Vedanta for that. you know, our body also will start overreacting, and all these lifestyle diseases is 100%, you know, uncontrollable eating, whatever feels good you eat. And well, you know, we don't need to go too far. We can look at our own lives for that. And then he's saying that if the charioteer becomes like this, so the horses become dushta ashwa. And he's saying dushta actual meaning is wicked, but that's not what they mean over here. They mean untamed, untrained and undisciplined. That's what the kind of, you don't want those kind of horses. So he's saying even if you buy a horse, you got to train it, you know, so that he can be put on the chariot. Otherwise it's not going to be good. So same way, mind का तो काम ही है इधर उधर भागना. So हमको intellect अपना active रखना चाहिए. And you know, like when I'm talking to the younger kids and all that, like 14, 15-year-old, so the way I kind of try to explain to them, you know, that keep your intellect active. Don't go by just what feels good and all that, you know. Let you think for a minute. Hey, is this the right thing to do? Because most of the time we're talking about teenagers, no? That is a phase where their intellect is now becoming good, but they still don't know how to steer it yet. They're still getting, and they don't think of the consequences. One of the problem with the teenagers, they think they're invincible. Oh, just let me try this, let me try that. You know, we all have gone through that phase. We have gone through with our children, and now, you know, some of you are going through with your grandchildren. It's exactly that. It's a delicate phase. So you have to slowly kind of try to teach them to steer their mind. You know, that's what it is. And if the Sarthi has yoked such horses, which are untamed, untrained and all that, and they will just run here and there. And then the modern example, if suppose they don't understand this chariot variant example, then you can tell the younger people, hey, you take a car and you're driving it and you leave the steering wheel. Firstly, put your hand little less on it, don't have a control, and then if you suddenly leave it, you don't know where the car is going to go. It's going to go according to the slope. And you will have a crash in 2 minutes. The same way the chariot, you know, लगाम को पकड़ के रखा है तो फिर वो चल रहा है ठीक से. Same way जो इंटेलेक्ट है उसने माइंड की लगाम को पकड़ा हुआ है, तो फिर जो हमारी इंद्रियां है ना वो कंट्रोल में रहेंगी. That's the whole. It's an amazing, beautiful example. Any question on this?
Umaji, is it true that the intellect in everyone has the discriminative power?
So at the deepest level it does, but our own negativities और जिसमें जो गंदगी भर जाती है ना, काम क्रोध लोभ मोह मद मात्सर्य, उसकी वजह से वो इंटेलेक्ट मैला हो जाता है. भगवान ने तो सभी को सेम ही दिया है. So that's why each one is capable. True. And that's why the purified mind is called Lord Krishna. उसको Lord Krishna को इसीलिए वहां बिठाया because he was a pure soul. You know, that's why his decisions will be all correct. So what we need to do is we need to make our mind pure, and that will be like invoking Lord Krishna in us.
And the problem is that although we have the discriminative power, we many times choose not to use it the right way.
Yes, and I think that we always have a voice inside us telling us what is the right thing to do, but we drown it out with our
Yes.
desire. That's why they say everybody has a conscious. जो चोरी भी करता है ना, उसको मालूम है कि वो चोरी कर रहा है.
Yeah.
And most of the time when we hurt people with our words and all that, we know we're hurting, but we can't help it because गुस्से में या जो भी, like one up, I want to be or something, True. Sneha, you have this Kathoupanishad, you want to read it?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
One who is always unrestrained mind and devoid of right understanding, his sense organs become uncontrollable, like the vicious horse of a charioteer. Having explained the analogy, if the Shruti were not to expose her intentions in making the analogy, it would have been an idle indulgence in wordplay. In the style of the Upanishads, brevity is the law, and to use therein even a single alphabet unnecessarily is considered as a great sin. Here, from this mantra on, we have a theme of 4 stanzas, which is the contents express the purpose of which was in the mind of Shruti when she launched this analogy.
So he's just basically telling that इतना सब example दिया है, उसके पीछे बहुत बड़ा purpose है. ऐसे एवं ही नहीं दे दिया example, because now through these 4 verses, and this is the first one that we are doing, it's telling you why that analogy was given. Okay, and then Swamiji explains, yeah.
In this mantra, the inefficient charioteer allows his reins to be loose, and naturally the sturdy steeds run wild, and as they list, dashing the chariot into bits and wrecking the Lord on the roadside. In the language of the analogy, we are to understand that if we allow an indiscriminate intellect to let our minds loose, then the indriyas, sense organs running wild among the sense objects, shall wreck the body in sensuous excesses. The implication is that if an individual seeker wants to lead a religious life of perfection and hasten his evolution, he has to keep his mind steady with his discriminating intellect and thus guide the sense force properly in full restraint and under perfect control. This is hinted at in the following stanza.
So you saw that, this analogy is very, very nice, beautiful, powerful. It's so simple also, right? घोड़े को इधर उधर छोड़ दिया तो wreck हो जाएगा. In the same way, if you let your mind run here and there without the intellect holding on to it, big problem. And then we have seen in the chapter 3, 4, 5, so many different techniques were given, all the yagnas that we talked about. And also he said, don't come under the sway of your likes and dislikes. Because for Yadana, coming under the sway of your likes and dislikes, let the horses do whatever they want. Then you will not reach the destination. Either you will reach some other place, or अगर पांचों इंद्रियों को ये भी एनालॉजी है कि अलग अलग जगह भागेंगे तो फिर वो इट विल बी क्रैश ही हो जाएगा. So many different ways you can look at this. Yeah. So any other point on this verse, or we can go to the next one?
Yeah, this is actually running parallel to our Geeta, controlling the
Yes,
senses and the...
yes. Because और वो मैंने बताया ना, वो 9-gated city में भी there is an analogy, उसमें वो 9-gated city बताया, यहाँ पर chariot बताया है. So there are so many. And then other thing is that the whole idea of Bhagavad Gita is the sar of Upanishads anyway, and a lot of great ideas have been taken, by Lord Krishna. He's summarizing the Upanishads actually to Arjun. He's telling, this is how you should lead your life. And Arjun के time पे लोगों ने misinterpret कर दिया था सब कुछ. काफी कुछ, not सब कुछ, I wouldn't say that. And sometimes even the greatest of people had misinterpreted. Like Bhishma Pitama and all that. Dronacharya and all. So Krishna had to come and fix everything. At least the ideas, correct ideas. So we can go to the next verse. So अभी वो बता रहे कि विज्ञानवान से क्या होगा, जो intelligent है, knowledgeable is even a better word. Yastu vijnanavan bhavati युक्तेन मनसा सदा तस्येन्द्रियाणि वश्यानि सदश्वा इव सारथे. Here is who, tu is but, Vijnanavan, who has the right understanding, right knowledge. Bhavati is. And यहाँ पर see the what it says is right understanding and right knowledge. Because खाली knowledge बोला तो भी गड़बड़ हो सकता है. That person can have a wrong knowledge. Right knowledge. It's very important. Bhavati is Yuktena is controlled. Manasa is mind. Sada always. Tasya is his. Indriyani, the senses. Pashyani, controllable. Sad ashva, good horses. वहाँ पर दुष्टाश्वा बोला था, यहाँ पर सदाश्वा बोला है. You know, the good horses. Eva, like Sarathe of the charioteer. So now he's talking about the charioteer who is Vijnanavan. So if you go back to the chariot example, you can say the person, the driver who has a knowledge of the chariot or vehicle, horses, road, destination, everything he knows what to do. Smoothly he can take your chariot over there, you know. And then he also knows that what the jiva at the core of it, what it wants. You know, it wants that liberation. He knows the destination of this jiva also. So that person, and then if you go back to the mind, then person who's united with the mind, and the mind obeys his command basically. Because sometimes, you know, if you stay in the lower mind, तो वो बोलते हैं कि I couldn't help myself. जो लोग शराबी होते हैं उनका क्या प्रॉब्लम होता है, उनको क्या मालूम नहीं है कि उनका लिवर खराब हो जाएगा, या जो स्मोक करते हैं उनको मालूम नहीं है कि उनका अभी तो आई थिंक जब मेरे डैड स्मोक करते थे ना, उन जमाने में टीनेजर्स को मालूम ही नहीं था, राइट, कि भाई कि इससे कुछ कैंसर हो जाएगा, कुछ इट वाज जस्ट अ फैशन और समथिंग. अभी तो इतना सारा एविडेंस है तो भी लोगों का छूटा नहीं है. That's the irony, because they just, you know, their lower mind gets slipped. You know, it's not under the control. But when the mind and the buddhi becomes one, then the senses become under control. You know, like the good tame horses, good tame horses will go where the charioteer wants it to go. That's why it has become, from that sense, it has become one. That the horses are doing what the charioteer wants. Okay, so in our body, so I'm the rathi, and I got this body as a chariot, and the buddhi is the charioteer, mind is the rein, and indriya are horses. That we all know. And so the roads are the indriya vishay bola na usko. So it's like shabda, roop, sparsh, gandha, and all that. These are so. We should know which one to go to. So he's saying that Tejamayananji explained like this. He said, suppose if you are on the Rajmarg, and he called the Rajmarg like a big highway, you know, and that highway equivalent to Gyan, Vairagya, Bhakti and Shraddha. Okay? वो वाले रोड पे हम लोग चल रहे हैं, तो फिर हमको, you know, कौन से ऑब्जेक्ट से इंडल्ज करना चाहिए? The one they will increase our devotion. ऐसा करना चाहिए. ऐसे रोड पे जाना चाहिए जो हमारा, you know, डिवोशन इंक्रीज करे. नॉट शॉर्टकट्स, इधर से लिया उधर से लिया. कंटिन्यू ऑन दैट मेन हाईवे, बिकॉज शॉर्टकट इज लाइक कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग. दैट्स व्हाट ही काइंड ऑफ analogy he took it to. I thought that was a very interesting way he explained. So he's saying that if we don't do this, then we don't know where we'll end up, you know. And then it was very interesting. He actually went to a slightly different subject, but I thought it was so interesting, so I'll share it with you. He said that whenever we see the Bhagavad Gita ka picture, agar they have to show a picture, they always show the chariot, hai ki nahi? And then he said they show horses. So sometimes, you know, people don't know it completely, so what they will do is they will read this verse and then they will try to make the picture. So they will make 5 horses, hai ki nahi? Because 5 इंद्रियां हैं तो 5 घोड़े बना देंगे. बोले नो एक्चुअली जो एक्चुअल रथ था ना भगवान का, उसमें 4 ही घोड़े थे. सो इसे हाउ डिड दैट हैपन? 5 इंद्रियां और 4 घोड़े. सो ही सेड दैट अवर टेस्ट का जो इंद्रिया ना, टंग, इट हैज एक्चुअली वेरी यूनिक इंद्रिया. इट हैज टच एंड टेस्ट बोथ. So one represent two, he said. That's why there are 4 horses. And then he said that I think in Bhagavatam, they have the names of the Bhagwan ke horses also. And he gave the names, whoever is interested. He said, Shabya, Meghapushpa, Sugriv and Balahak. These are the name of the 4 horses. They had the color of each horse. They were not all white actually. The Shabya was green like a parrot. Meghapushpa was color of clouds, so maybe little, maybe dark clouds, I'm not sure. Sugriv was yellow gold and Balahak was white. And 2 horses were in the front, 2 in the back. In a sense, they were staggered. ऐसे नहीं कैसे एक line में थे, नहीं. They were, all that description is in Bhagavatam, he said. And in fact, कौन सा घोड़ा कौन से side में था? इतना detail में है वो. Which to me it was mind-boggling. Saying that, it's. I thought he also said, "Hey, I'm regressing, but I just wanted you to know." But then he came back to the subject and he said that Lord Krishna was guiding Arjun's chariot, right? But not just the chariot in the war, the actual physical chariot, but chariot of his life he was guiding. That's what you want, So he's saying that it is our intellect that guides our life. So then, invoke Shri Krishna in that intellect. Pray to him. That just like you drove the Arjun's chariot to success, bless me and my intellect also, that it becomes pure. So that should be our thing. And it's, once we do this, then our journey will be safe. So that's what these mantras are. Time is up. Next 2, he's going to tell you that the good horses will take you to, good charioteer, Vijnanavan will take you to what destination, and the other one will take you to what destination. That's what he's going to talk about in the next 2 verses. Any question, comment? We have to still read it's very small. Can we just finish that? Did anybody else want to read like Kamla ji? I'm not sure if you're there and if you want to read. Okay, if not, then Sushil ji, you can read. You have this.
But he who has the right understanding and has a mind always controlled, his senses are always controllable as the good horses of the charioteer. Just as an intelligent charioteer, by the intelligent manipulations of the reins, guides the horses along the road which the master wants to ride through, so too an intelligent seeker must, with his pure intellect, keep his mind in restraint and control, and must thus guide his life through the path of God without allowing the horses to run wild. Down the embankment, God without allowing the horses to run wild down the embankments into the muddy fields of reckless pleasures, there to break the chariot and end the ride in a tragic wayside crash.
I have one more paragraph. It says, such a sadhak controlling the impulses of the mind with a clean, discriminative understanding is called yoked one, yuktaha. And he is complemented by the wise of the scripture as Vijnanavan. Just repeating like what is Vijnanavan, that's fine. So we already kind of went through this. Now once you understand the analogy, it's pretty simple, right? What they are saying. So any question, comment? Anybody wants to add anything to this analogy? Okay, so we'll close the class. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.